you have a special attachment to Portugal, specifically Fatima. So I guess maybe we can go through both those threads. But first, what was that special connection through Fatima that you had to Portugal?
Yeah, that's a very personal story, and I know that Brian knew that. So it's interesting that you asked that question. And I talked with my wife about it at length, and she's like, "You know what? You should tell this story because it's a wonderful. We got to witness a miracle in Fatima ourselves with our own eyes, and it was 2014. We'd sold the company, our Pacific Crest Securities, to KeyBank. We were on a trip to go visit friends up the Douro and go to Portugal. And my wife, Mary, she's a wonderful, wonderful Catholic woman. And she said, well, then we're going to go on a pilgrimage to Our Lady of Fatima. And so off we went, and we took another couple with us. And the woman who was with us was not Catholic. Her husband was a fallen away Catholic. And as we went to Fatima, we got a tour guide, and the tour guide looked at my wife and said, well, we have an excellent opportunity today. We can meet Lucia, who is one of the shepherd children. We can meet her niece, and she's the oldest living relative directly that knew Lucia and lived with her as a young girl. And of course, being the, I don't know how to describe myself, but on the business sense, I was looking at this is totally a money-making venture. We are not going to see, some relative of Lucia's.
Yeah.
And of course, my wife Mary turned around and said, oh, absolutely, we're going to go see her. So we went and saw, and in this room was a very small, she's about in her high 80s. She was dressed in black. She was bent over. She had her rosary, and she was praying there with her eyes closed. And so we knocked on the door, and of course we pushed Mary in first, and off she went. And she went and kneeled down in front of her and said, we're very blessed to be here. And we had an interpreter, and the interpreter was saying that, she's going to pray for you and thank you for coming. I go in, I do the same thing. I get down on a knee, and we grab me, her little hands, and she puts them up and says a little prayer. And then our girlfriend, Whitney, went in, and this elderly woman just jumped up, opened her eyes, grabbed her, pulled her to her. And it was a moment that the air got thick. Her husband, Jim, looked and said, what's going on? There's something going on here. This isn't right. And this elderly, wonderful saint of a woman just started rattling off in Whitney's ear in Portuguese. Well, none of us spoke Portuguese at that point in time. And we got done. She then slumped down, and Whitney looked, and we were like, oh my God, what happened? And she said, all I know is she told me that my faith will heal me. And that's all we knew.
And she didn't. We were like, and she said this all in Portuguese, and she didn't know Portuguese.
All in Portuguese, and she didn't know any Portuguese.
Huh.
And so and none of us could understand anything. And she just turned around and she goes, no, she told me multiple times my faith is going to heal me. So she went home at the end of this trip, and there's another piece of it that I'll go back to. But at the end of the trip, she went back to LA. She was so taken aback by Fatima and Our Lady of Fatima and this experience that she began RCA classes, and she's joined the Catholic Church. She's one of the most wonderful Catholics. And shortly into that, she got very sick. They took her to the hospital, and they gave her an appendectomy. They took her appendix out, and they looked at it, and when they did the biopsy, the entire appendix was filled with cancer cells.
Wow.
The entire thing. And so they began immediately chemo and other things, and they soon discovered there wasn't a single other cell of cancer in her body, not one. And she still is cancer-free to this day. And they're like, this is just an absolute miracle that your appendix somehow just picked all this up, cleaned it out. And this is a woman who, says her rosary every day to Our Lady of Fatima. And so and then we went on to a church, and Mary had a similar experience. You know how every church in Europe, and especially in Portugal, has the little old lady begging in front. Yep. And this, she all rattled her basket at us as we went by, and we put in a little bit of change. But Mary goes, you know what, I'm going to give you something when I come back out, but I need to go inside. In English, the woman just looked at her. We came back out. The women grabbed her just like the lady in Fatima did, and started talking to her, and said in Portuguese, because Mary turned around and goes, she just told me we need to go to this chapel over here. And it was a shrine to St. Joseph. And St. Joseph is who we'd been praying to, all along this. And so we've now come to the conclusion that, yes, you need to, silence your heart and silence your life to listen to God. But in this case, we weren't, our hearts weren't silent. We were part of a trip. We had the campaign going on. There were just a lot of things going on in our lives, and the company, we just sold the company. And long story short, this was our impression of God wasn't speaking to us. He was yelling at us. And so all of this, fast forward to the campaign, and when asked, what if I win and you want a job, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be the ambassador to Portugal. And all the way through, Our Lady of Fatima kept showing up. And literally in a Senate confirmation, if you read the transcripts on that, I'm asked, why do I want to go to Portugal? And I start talking about Our Lady of Fatima, and immediately the questions go on to, someone else. They don't want anything to do with me. And they're like, yeah, that guy's fine, let him go. And so I ended up being the first ambassador to Europe and one of the first ambassadors out. But I got over there and I went in. I'm sorry, this is a lengthy story.
Oh, go for it.
The moral of this story is, as they sit down, they take you in and you have a big meeting with the president of your country. You hand over your documents that say you're plenipotentiary and you are the voice of America in that country. And in my case, with the president of Portugal, he said, well, let's take a minute and sit down and back, and I'd like to talk to you about some things we need to work on. And we go in back with 3 or 4 of his advisors, and it's just me from the American side. Nobody else is allowed him. And he looks at me and he goes, are you a believer? And I said, a believer in what? And he, of course, he turned around and he said, are you a believer in our Holy Mother of Fatima? And I said, absolutely. I say a rosary to her every day. And I said, that's why I'm here. And he goes, then that makes you as much Portuguese as I am, so let's go to work. And that's a gospel true story. And it's, we owe the whole thing to our Holy Mother. And that's why we were there. And we have no idea. We kept trying to figure out, we had to be sent here for a reason. We did a lot of things. We did a lot of things with the church. We did a lot of things with, went and met with the Pope. And, we did all kinds of different things, but I have never figured out why we were there. So someday we'll, when we get to heaven, we'll finally figure it out.
I think I got some clues as to why you were there. I think God probably wanted you there, if I were to make an educated guess.